I'll turn this one on too. I'll be extra loud. Thank you. Thank you for the reminder. Appreciate that. Well, thank you everyone for being here. For even the folks I can't really see back there, I see some people back there as well. So, folks, if you are here for the City of Cheyenne Public Services Committee October 3rd meeting, you're in the right place. If you're not here for that meeting, I'm not sure where you're supposed to be, but it's not here. So, but I think all of you are supposed to be here for this meeting today, it looks like. So, anyway, as you can tell, we have, if you've picked up an agenda, we have a relatively lengthy agenda, so we will try to get through this meeting as expedited as possible, while also allowing everyone to have public comment. If you don't mind, if you do have a phone or a device, tablet, anything like that on you, if you're able to, if you can either shut it off or mute it during the meeting, we do very much appreciate that, just out of consideration for everybody else. For those of you online, if you are able to mute yourselves when you're not speaking, again, that's helpful. All public comment today at this meeting should be related to an item on today's agenda. If you are here to speak about something that is not on the agenda, unfortunately, those comments won't be solicited today. Rather, you are able to come and speak other under business at the full council meeting, which is next Monday. Last thing, if you do wish to give us some public comment, feel free to come up to that podium. Again, it'll illuminate to red like that. That will allow the clerk to know who you are, identify who you are, if you would, before you start your comments. So we can follow up with you, and so we have an accurate record of the meeting. With that, Madam Clerk, item number 7, please.
Item number 7, ordinance third reading, amending the official zoning map of the city of Cheyenne, changing the zoning classification from MUB, mixed use business emphasis, to P, public district for land located at lot 1, block 1, back 40 subdivision, third filing.
And I forgot something, just for the record. We have Mr. Laybourne. We have a full house on the committee today, but Mr. Laybourne is at home virtually. And I do have in attendance Dr. Rennie and Mr. Seagrave here in person with myself. Staff report, please.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, my name is Seth Lloyd. I'm with the City of Cheyenne Planning and Development Department. The application in front of you at this time is a request to rezone property that is owned by the city from MUB to P Public. The property is located next to the Ice and Event Center, and the purpose is the land is a public facility and can better meet the intent and applicability statements of the public zone over the MUB zone. The parcel on the map on this original zone change map was a little bit off of the property lines because the property lines had not been updated. The plat map that has been recorded for the land shows the correct property lines, which is also in your packet. There's been no changes on this application since the second reading, but I am available for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Lloyd. Appreciate that breakdown very much. Any questions from the committee for Mr. Lloyd? Again, we are on item number 7, this ordinance on third reading. All right. And we are the developer on this one, right? So there is no.
Mr. Chair, that is correct. The city is the applicant on this project. I could stand and give the exact same spiel as the applicant if you'd like.
No,
but...
I was going to make sure I didn't miss
Correct.
somebody, Mr. Lloyd. I know we've done that in the past. So, okay, well then we'll go to public comment. Thank you for reiterating that. Do we have any hands raised online, Madam Clerk? Any public comment from here in the room? Again, we are on item number 7. The first item on the agenda today. Seeing and hearing no public comment, the chair would entertain a motion. Second. Moved by Dr. Rennie, seconded by Mr. Seagrave. Again, are there any questions, comments from the committee related to this ordinance on third reading? Okay. Anything from Mr. Laybourne? He would typically raise his hand though. Okay. Seeing and hearing no more committee comment. All those in favor?
Aye.
Can barely hear him, but we can hear him. Thank you, Mr. Laybourne. All right, the recommendation for this ordinance on third reading at next Monday's city council meeting will be for approval. Next item, please.
Number 8, ordinance third reading, amending the official zoning map of the city of Cheyenne, changing the zoning classification from CB community business to MUB mixed use business for land located on lots 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, block 1, Hitching Post Plaza, third filing.
Staff report.
Chair through you to the
Please.
committee, Lonnie Olson, Planning and Development. Before you is a zone change from CB Community Business to MUB Mixed Use Business. There's been no changes since second reading and staff stands for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Olson. We appreciate that. Any questions for staff from the committee? Do we have a developer's report on this one?
Chair through you, I do not see the developer.
Is he online? Okay. No problem. Okay, so there is not a developer's report on this. Just let the record show, Madam Clerk, that we did offer the opportunity. With that, I'll turn it out to public comment. No hands raised, and I don't see anybody rushing to the podium. Okay. No public comment. The chair would entertain a motion. Second. Moved by Mr. Seagrave, seconded by Dr. Rennie. Questions or comments from the committee?
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
thank you. If I recall, we're doing this because they want to modify the original plan and maybe be able to include some housing. Is that correct? I'm trying to remember what we heard 2 weeks ago.
If you would like to answer that, Mr. Olson, or if you can.
Chair through you, Lonnie Olson, Planning and Development to Dr. Rennie. It is to allow for possibly residential development and also smaller lot setbacks.
Okay, and Mr. Chairman, there isn't a map in our packet to show which lots are being changed, so. Or am I missing it?
I think, Mr. Chairman, I can
Okay.
clarify that. So we had a sub amendment for that. And so then I don't think the map got attached to the substitute amendment, which modified the lots from last time, correct?
Okay. And I remember we went through that. I just want to review it or have it
Oh, was that-
refreshed in my memory,
okay.
but yeah, seeing that now, I do recall. Thank
Oh,
you.
yes, okay. I think,
All
no, I think we're good. I think did you have further
No,
questions?
that
for
was,
staff?
that was my only 2 questions.
Okay.
So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any further questions or comments from the committee for Mr. Olson? Further questions and comments? Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? The recommendation on this ordinance on third reading for next Monday's meeting will be for approval. Item number 9, please.
Number 9, ordinance third reading, amending certain sections of chapter 13.20 wastewater treatment and disposal of title 13 public services of the municipal code of the city of Cheyenne, Wyoming regarding wastewater treatment and disposal.
Do we have a staff report?
Yes, Mr. Chair, through you to the rest of the council members, Matt Bulow, Cheyenne Board of Public Utilities, was contacted by Mr. Brooks, I believe last week. Stephanie Foster, city attorney, got a few comments from council members. So I have with me today, Vicki Dowdy, our compliance supervisor. She's just going to do a quick broad overview of this ordinance change.
Okay.
Good afternoon. I'm Vicki Dowdy, Compliance Supervisor at BOPU. As you may recall, we made a large-scale modification to Chapter 1320 a few years ago. It was a modification to make the code more protective of our sanitary sewer system and our treatment plants. We've been pleased with the improvements that we've seen since it took effect. In 2021, prior to the ordinance modification, we saw a total of just under 500,000 gallons of fat oil grease or fog containing waste removed from grease interceptors. While that's a considerable number, it left a lot of fog still entering the sanitary sewer system. This can cause areas of clogs, sewer backups, which many times can affect innocent neighbors' homes and businesses. It also creates a hardship for our O&M division when they have to repeatedly jet sewer lines. In 2022, and after the modified ordinance was implemented, we're proud to say the amount of fog containing waste removed rose 23%. This year, we're tracking another increase of 15%. While we've seen this positive impact of the ordinance, we've also found some inconsistencies. These changes have been pointed out either as grammar changes or consistency changes. The largest change you have before you is in sections 1320-730 and 1320-740. This is a response to issues that rose during the past year with industrial users that repeatedly violated the code. The industrial pretreatment program is required and approved by the EPA. The EPA audits our program regularly to verify that we are enforcing the city code and that we respond to violators appropriately. Part of our requirements are to escalate enforcement for those that repeatedly violate. We have two tools that are the most feasible for our program to use for repeat offenders. The first is administrative fines, which we can escalate by raising the dollar amount. This can be a useful tool in getting the attention of industrial users, but there comes a point when we do not see improved compliance from issuing more and higher fines. And issuing fines does not keep fog out of the sewer system. This is where the termination of water service comes into play. We believe that when several fines have failed to steer industrial users into compliance, that it makes more of a statement and less of a financial impact on the repeat offender, especially our smaller local businesses, to terminate service for a small period of time than to continue to increase fines. Our goal is to gain compliance, not continue to issue fines. We ask that you approve this ordinance revision, and my team and I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Downey. If I pronounced your name correct, I hope I was at least close. Thank you. Any questions for staff?
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
when you say industrial users, I have this image of large companies. But in fact, the users we're talking about are much smaller than that, aren't they?
An industrial user is basically any business that discharges non-domestic waste, which would be restaurants up to large industries.
So it could be mom and pop type.
It could be,
It's not
yes,
just the big conglomerates.
correct.
Mr. Chair, guess I'm a little bit concerned about this. I know we need compliance. But I'm also very concerned about shutting off water and sewer to a mom and pop restaurant or a mom and pop whatever that is a quote industrial user. It's just small businesses is what makes Cheyenne run, and if we start shutting businesses down, I'm concerned about that. Thank you.
Dr. Rennie, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, Ms. Dowdy, to follow up on that similar line of reasoning, what for us, generally, what are we looking at? Can you give me an idea what a fine would be for a smaller business as opposed to, large box store or something like that?
The fines are consistent regardless of size of
The
business.
size of, okay.
Yeah, the fines start small. For a first-time offender, usually the first time someone violates, we inspect, we don't fine them. And then after that, it escalates. The fines could get up into thousands of dollars after several consecutive
The
violation.
reason I was asking, I was just trying to compare the impact, you said you thought that closing a business down would have less of an impact than a large fine, but if I lost a couple days of production, that could be significant at times. So I was trying to weigh the difference there. Secondly, there's a lot here to absorb. If you get compliance, do we continue to assess a fine or punish the business?
Okay, so the fine comes after someone violates. So someone, for example, doesn't clean a grease trap. So we'll issue, the first time I said they get an inspection. After that, we'll issue a notice of violation with a small fine. And then each time after that they violate, it will continue to go up.
Okay.
So whether they gain compliance or not, that fine still comes due.
Okay. And I'm just trying to, again, understand the process. So if they have some outstanding fines, they have come into compliance, they still owe their fines. Is there a point then where they would still have their water shut off?
That would be down the road a ways. Typically by the time we get to a termination of service, they have been out of compliance for the better part of a year or two. More out of compliance than not. That means we've tried escalating fines up to potentially $5,000. And they're not getting the picture. That's when we would move forward with the termination.
And one last question, which isn't as maybe as relevant, but I know somewhere in here I read where termination would include not only water, but sewer service. How do we terminate someone's sewer service?
We don't, I believe it says and or.
No, I
sewer
thought-
service.
I thought it said and, so. I'll have
Yeah,
to-
so yeah, we can only terminate the water
Okay.
service.
I read that and I thought, how are we gonna do that other than
Really?
Yeah, that would not be.
break up the lines by the way? All right, that was my questions, Mr. Chairman. Thank
Mr.
you.
Chair, follow.
We're really dragging this one into the gutter. Okay, go ahead,
Thank you, sir.
please.
That one stunk.
The
That one's done.
process you just described is the current process, is that right? But the new process allows you to step up termination much quicker. Am I reading this correctly?
No, sir. So we would still have the same process. The difference in this one is, say we've had someone repeatedly violate till they've come to a termination of service. The first time they receive a termination of service notification, if they come into compliance prior to us shutting off the water, we would not shut off the water. Because at that point, they've had a chance for a hearing, that's a long process. So the change is when it comes to a second termination of service. So we've been through probably a year and a half of fines. We've terminated or sent them a notice of termination. They had a hearing, they came back into compliance, and they violate again in a short time frame. Then that's when our process would speed up. Instead of going through an entire hearing again and everything, it would just be issuing the termination of service. And whether or not they came back into compliance, they would still get terminated for a short time.
Go ahead.
Can you just, and I don't need an exact number, but an approximate number, how many violators are we talking about in the community? Is it a handful or is it 100?
No, I would say the ones that get to this point are maybe a handful a year, if that. I would say probably 2 to 5 a year would
That
get to
the
this point.
termination.
Correct.
And after the initial long process, do you see repeat offenders? Is that why we're changing this? Is because
There-
you see them again?
Yeah, so there are a few. A lot of people will come back into compliance right away after a couple of fines, and they never get to this point, which that's our goal. But there are some that no matter how much we try to educate them and try to help them through the process, they just continue to violate.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
Does the board have any estimate on, because you said there was with what, a 15%, we're looking at a 15% increase over last year and that was like a 20 to 30% increase over previous years. Is there an estimate on what that costs the board, which eventually gets passed on to the rest of us? Yes.
There is an estimate. Unfortunately, I don't know that number.
Can you email that to us or have?
We can
somebody
get that.
email To us. I'd kind of like to
Yes.
see that figure.
Do we have any hands raised specifically from Mr. Laybourne? Okay. Thank you. Stand by. I don't know if there'll be any questions under public comment, but there could be. Thank you for your presentation, though. I'll go ahead and move to public comment at this point. Do we have any public comment within the room here? Do we have any hands raised at all? Clerk, almost called you Madam Chair. Well, yeah, you do run it. Chair would entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, moved by Dr. Rennie, seconded by Mr. Seagrave. Discussion.
Chair.
Well, what happened?
Dr. Rennie, did you have any further, anything from Mr. Laybourne? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, the recommendation for item number 9 will be for approval at next Monday's city council meeting. I believe that puts us on number 16.
Number 16, resolution certifying compliance with with Wyoming State Statute 15-1-402 for the city initiated annexation of various tracts of land completely surrounded by current city limits situated in northwest Cheyenne, generally located north of Del Range Boulevard and west of Powder House Road.
Staff report, please.
The chair, members of the committee, this is Charles Bloom, Planning and Development Director. This is County Pockets number 2 annexation. This area is located in northwest Cheyenne, generally located west of Powder House Road and north of Del Range Boulevard. As you can see on the map that's included as an attachment to the resolution and shown on the screen there, it highlights what are 50 parcels that are owned by approximately 26 different individual properties that are developed. The annexation of these properties represent properties that are completely surrounded by the city limits. That means every direction you head, north, east, south, or west, they all lead to city limits and roads or portion of the city that are under city maintenance. For this annexation, staff has mailed out a voluntary notice to all of the property owners within the area to be annexed to have a meeting to discuss any questions they may have regarding this annexation. This is the first step in the process. This does not essentially initiate the annexation process. It basically finds that this area complies with state statute to allow for annexation, and it directs the city to annex the area at a future time. Our intention is to begin the annexation process in just a matter of weeks and have the annexation of these properties wrapped up in December of 2023, specifically around December 14th. An annexation becomes effective after the annexation ordinance is published and also after the annexation ordinance and map are recorded with the county clerk. In the packet, there's information regarding the tentative timeline. That is a timeline that we will be looking to follow for this annexation. To date, staff has received several phone calls from residents within the area, just inquiring about the process. One of the commenters that contacted us via phone had asked about water and sewer connections when it will be annexed in the future. In the event that a property owner does seek to connect to water or sewer, they will be required to pay the connection fees and extend utilities to their property. In addition, since they'd be in the city, they would not have to have an outside user agreement. So they'd be paying the 100% city rate instead of the escalated rate that outside users pay right now. Again, this is just the kickoff resolution for the annexation proceedings, saying that meets the statutory requirements to be eligible for annexation. This is not the ordinance that would annex it. That will come at a later date, specifically after introduction on November 13th. I'm open for any questions that you may have.
Questions for Mr. Bloom from the committee?
Can we go back to the map?
It's a fairly long legal description there.
Yes. So, Mr. Chairman, to Mr. Bloom, parcels 1 and 2 are across the road to the east, or is that city or county?
Chair, through you to Councilmember Rennie. Powder House Road is annexed into the
I
city.
know.
And Powder House is built to city standards and maintained, but the lands directly to the east, those are in the unincorporated county.
And then I just was trying to figure out what's the bit of vacant property between 4 and 8? Is that city property that's just undeveloped? No.
Chair, through you to Councilmember Rennie, you were referring to number 4?
Yeah, that's between 4, 4 is on the east, 8 is on the west, and it's on my map, it's kind of in the orange.
Chair, that is a remainder parcel that is designated open space that was platted with that subdivision in that area that actually is restricted on the plat to be outdoor open space and parkland.
That's
Undeveloped hill.
That's it.
Yes, that's
Sled Hill,
correct.
Okay, but that is part of the city though.
south of his
Okay.
neighborhood.
Chair, through you to Councilmember Rennie, that's correct.
All right. Okay, so I was just, I think everywhere else on the map I understood. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Seagrave, did you have any questions for staff? How about Mr. Laybourne? I just want to make sure I give him an opportunity before I move to the public. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Bloom, but again, you'll stand by in case we do have some of those members of the public who have some questions. Do we have any hands raised? All right, public comment here in the room. Again, we are on this resolution, item number 16, which I believe, Mr. Bloom, like you stated, really just allows your staff to continue the process toward the introduction of the ordinance. Okay. Okay. Seeing and hearing no public comment at this time, the chair would entertain a motion.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Seagrave, seconded by Dr. Rennie. Further questions, comments, or concerns from the committee? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? The recommendation for this resolution at next week's city council meeting will be for adoption. Item number 17, please.
Number 17, resolution certifying compliance with Wyoming State Statute 15-1-402 for a city-initiated annexation of tracts of land in Township 14 North, Range 67 West at the 6 p.m. for an area generally located west of Interstate 25 and north of State Highway 210, east of Round Top Road and south of Horse Creek Road.
Mr. Bloom.
Chair, members of the committee, Charles Bloom, Planning and Development Director. This is very similar to the prior one. This is essentially the kickoff resolution for annexation of the base. This is in response to a council resolution that was sponsored by Councilmember Seagrave several months ago to initiate proceedings for base annexation. If you all are aware, there was an email sent from from Colonel Johnny Galbert today, asking that we essentially slow down the process so they can make sure that they have their ducks in a row on the base as we proceed forward. Because the last thing we'd want for to happen was for us to begin consideration of this annexation and then not annex the property, or begin annexation of the base and then receive a protest from the base, which would prevent annexation for the next 2 years. So what we would like to do with this item is actually postpone this item for 2 weeks so we can continue to have further discussions with the base on this item. However, I would like to also note we have a substitute that corrects a legal description. We would still like to have action move forward on that substitute for that substitute to be adopted. So we have the correct and updated legal description included. And then we would request that this item be postponed so we can continue to work together with the base on moving forward collaboratively. I'm open for any questions you may have.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Seagrave.
Mr. Chair,
Go
through
ahead.
you. Question for Director Bloom. Again, the item we're looking at, it's not the ordinance that creates the annexation. This is simply a resolution saying we're in compliance. So is it really necessary to postpone this item? In other words, if we approve the fact that it's in compliance, but delay the introduction of the ordinance, is there an issue there? Is there any timing issue we need to work with?
Chair, through you to Councilmember Seagrave. Really, there is, you're 100% accurate there. This is not the annexation ordinance. What this resolution does is it certifies compliance that it meets the statutory requirements to be annexed. However, the latter part of the resolution says we will annex it. State statute doesn't say when we will annex it, it just says we will. But in the spirit of continuing to work together with the base, since they have sent a letter for further discussion, I think it'd be prudent for us to at least honor the postponement at this time to allow us to get together and have that conversation and present some additional details and understand their processes prior to the next Public Services Committee meeting.
Mr. Chair, one final question.
Oh, go ahead.
Do you really believe they can figure this out in 2 weeks? We are talking about government here.
And I was gonna say something similar. I wasn't sure if postponement, I mean, we can only postpone 2 weeks at a time, so.
Chair, members of the committee, honestly, all governments move at different paces. I think what this will allow us to do is at least initiate a conversation to identify to all parties what the effect of this resolution will be, and then determine the appropriate path to go forward.
No, go ahead, but I had a comment.
One quick final.
Yeah,
I don't mind postponing for 2 weeks, but when you start these discussions, please make sure they understand that this resolution is not the ordinance, and that if we do pass it in 2 weeks, that's simply a procedural item, and we're not necessarily going to move forward with an ordinance. Please, thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
go ahead.
kind of along a similar line of questioning. Again, if we do pass the resolution, the certification in 2 weeks, knowing that then with a request from Colonel Galbert, I presume the administration then at that point would just wait on the fourth step of introducing to Planning Commission until everything's resolved with the base. Is that, I mean, to me, that seems like an acceptable way to approach this.
Chair, through you to Councilmember Rennie, that is correct. If we postpone, we just delay everything by 2 weeks. Or we would wait until we
To
had
follow up,
adequate
if we do
direction.
not postpone this resolution and just approve the certification, as Councilman Seagrave suggests, there's nothing that says you have to start the whole process until all the negotiations are settled, correct?
Chair, through you to Councilmember Rennie, that is correct.
And-
Once this resolution is passed, we
And
could
my
wait.
assumption is that's how you and the administration would handle it.
Chair, through you to Councilmember Rennie, that is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions or comments from the committee for Mr. Bloom? All right. Any hands raised? Public comment. Mr. White.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, Michael White, I understand this dilemma about postponement, but I'd like to make a few comments. We've got a letter from the commander of the base, but in all due respect, the chain of command goes beyond that. The Department of Defense, under the guidelines of the President of the United States, as the Joint Chiefs of Staff involved with any compliance, it has to be on Air Force bases. The Office of Secretary of the Defense, the Office of the Inspector General, the military departments, and their heads of the Air Force, Army, and Navy. So I guess what we seem to be getting on this kick about annexation, which I respectfully say I don't agree with any of it at this point. We should have all our ducks in a row to be able to comment on the public when Mr. Bloom gave us a letter that the base commander is asking for postponement, but I go a step further. I think the chain of command needs to send letters to the governing body saying that they agree with this. We've heard the discussion before at council that they wouldn't, the last few council meetings, that they wouldn't go against this. Now they've written a letter to Mr. Bloom asking for more time. I would respectfully say that we give them all the time that we want, because in addition to this being annexed, then it brings up the possibility of future annexations west of the Air Force Base. And as being a taxpayer, I would like to make sure also, which I'm sure Mr. Bloom is doing his diligence in doing that, and the city attorney, to also reflect on the new rules that were adopted by the legislative body to inform the landowners. Thank you.
Yeah, there are certainly a lot of balls in the air with this, a lot of information, a lot of follow-up that needs to be done. But those concerns I believe are duly noted. Further public comment. Okay, no more public comment. The chair would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Seagrave,
I would move to adopt.
Second,
moved by Seagrave, seconded by Dr. Rennie.
Mr. Chairman. I'd like to amend my substitute.
Substitute, go ahead.
Thank you. Dated September 29th.
So funny. Anyway, okay, so moved by Dr. Rennie. Do we have a second on the
Second.
substitute? I believe you might have, but
That's
thank
okay.
you.
Mr. Chair,
Okay,
my understanding of the substitute, it simply corrects the legal description. I don't believe there's any other changes.
is that, so you believe, Mr. Bloom, that this still would comply with the commander's request? If that's granted.
This is just,
No, I realize, but I guess just optically, I mean, an action is still an action, so.
Chair,
Okay.
through you to the committee, yes,
All
the substitute correct the legal description is still in line with the request.
Thank you. Sorry to cut you off, Mr. Seagrave, if you had additional.
no, this is just correcting the legal
Yeah.
description. We're not
I believe so.
moving forward necessarily.
So we are on the substitute. I am going to turn that back out to the public. Any public comment? Do we have any hands raised? Madam Clerk? Any public comment here in the room? Again, we are on the proposed substitute. You all don't have copies of that, but we do. Mr. Bloom did provide explanation for the substitute. No public comment on the substitute. How about comments from the committee on the substitute? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, this resolution, well, we're back on the original motion now, on the original resolution as amended. Madam Clerk, is that the language we need? Okay, so we are back on the original resolution as amended.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Seagrave,
I don't necessarily see the harm in approving this resolution since it is not the legal document to begin the annexation. However, I am going to make a motion to postpone for 2 weeks so that our staff have the opportunity to properly explain that. And so that the Air Force representatives realize that this resolution simply means we're in compliance with 15-1-402. And we're not beginning the annexation. So I formally move to postpone for 2 weeks.
Second.
moved by Mr. Seagrave, seconded by Dr. Rennie. Again, any questions, comments from the public regarding the proposed postponement? Okay. Back to the committee. All right. All those in favor of the proposed postponement?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The recommendation, let me make sure I get this correct. You just need a recommendation for postponement, correct? Okay. All right. Well, I just was curious because we amended it as well. So the recommendation for this item will be for a 2-week postponement at next Monday City Council meeting. Number 18, please.
Number 18, resolution expressing the will of the governing body for the temporary installation of additional traffic control devices at specified locations along Gardenia Drive to combat the serious problem of speeding vehicles.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir, Mr. Seagrave.
I probably need to discuss this since I'm one of the sponsors who proposed this resolution. When we proposed this resolution, it was designed to be a temporary status while the city worked on and developed permanent plans for traffic control through this area. As we all know, over the last 20 years, Gardenia between Powder House and Yellowstone has become a thoroughfare for a lot of traffic. The Point subdivision has virtually built out and contains a lot of traffic. I do believe there's a couple of new condominiums or high-rise facilities that might not quite be done, but my point is we've introduced a lot of additional traffic without any additional traffic control for this road. So the purpose of this was to provide some temporary help while permanent solutions were being developed. We were advised last week under other business that this is not in compliance with warrants, I believe is the term. So at some point, this resolution most likely needs to die, but I'm going to urge that we approve it today just so that we can talk about it in the formal meeting Monday night before it meets its untimely demise. Gardenia is a serious traffic situation. We have parks. It transitions from I believe it's Monterey Heights, where we have cars backing out of parking, correction, out of driveways. And when those driveways were built, I don't believe there was ever an intention or an understanding that that would become it's not a collector street formally, but it's a pretty busy transition. So I just I do know Director Cobb has some plans, but as we mentioned earlier, government moves very slow, and so that was the intent to create this temporary situation. Thank you.
Well, I can second your sentiments. I live in that neighborhood, so I know exactly what you're talking about. I've used that park. I've had kids using that area myself, so I do know full well that it is we need to do something, and I believe I'm gonna go ahead and give it to Mr. Cobb if he'd like to make a staff report, if you'd like to. Or if there's information you'd like to provide, if you would like to provide. I was informed you might be here to provide an update on some of what
Yes.
you're working on, so.
Chairman Cook, I'd like to do that. Good afternoon. Chairman Cook, members of the Public Services Committee, Tom Cobb, City Engineer. I do have a pamphlet I'm going to pass out to you. And first of all, I just want to clarify a couple of points that you made, Councilman Seagrave, through you again. It is a collector. So the status of Gardenia is a collector. It has been a collector for years. The difference is in the old days, the standard was, we now have a standard within the UDC. We do not put driveways on collectors, but back in the day, they did. So another example of this is one where I live on Carlson, driveways are all the way through the entire thing. So again, today we don't allow that to happen. But, you know, prior to us and other administrations, it was allowed. It was a different time. Traffic was a bit different. So let me take a second to hand this out, and I'll send this out via email as well. So the first point I just want to make is, and I think because of the discussion that happened under other business the other night, I want to make sure that everybody understands our primary purpose as a department, and my department specifically, is the paramount safety of our community. You know, we understand the concerns of both you and the citizens in the neighborhood, but as I've stated earlier, we can't indiscriminately just install traffic control devices at locations that do not meet state statutes, city codes, or standards and guidelines of my profession. We are in the process, and I want to make this known to everyone, we're currently developing a study and a report in conjunction with the Cheyenne Police Department that are evaluating vehicle speeds, corridor safety, pedestrian usage, and potential crosswalks, and a review of the MPO Neighborhood Traffic Management Program, and specifically the plan conducted by Nolte and Associates for the MPO in 2006. And just for full disclosure, I was part of that team in Nolte and Associates in 2006. And then we're developing then the data together with a report that shows any warranted recommendations that we will give to you and others for publication. So again, if we do find the need for devices that are recommended to be installed, we're going to make that recommendation to move those forward. So as I stated earlier in the last, this paragraph on the first page, as a municipality, in accordance with state statute 31-5-112, and with our city code 10.20.020 and the Unified Development Code, requires us to adhere to the placement of traffic control devices, and more directly stop signs, using the manual and uniform traffic control devices. So that requires us to do a warrants analysis before we just, indiscriminately just add devices for no apparent reason. On the second page of my memo, I'd like to point out some things. This is not just me talking. So there's many studies and reports, so I've attached one to the back of this, that if we install unwarranted stop signs, it will create unforeseen problems. And those are documented all over the United States. In this report that I've attached here, this gentleman is it's W. Martin I can't even say his name, but he is a PE and again has compiled studies all over the country. A summary of his findings are, as I said before, we talk in increased liability, increased traffic noise, that is installing stop signs that are unwarranted. Multi-way stops do not control speeds. Before and after studies show multi-way stop signs do not reduce speeds on residential streets. We have increased speeds between those devices. Unwarranted multi-way stops increase speeds because the distance between the intersections, because people grow impatient. They see that there's no traffic on the side streets and they're simply, they don't want to adhere to those stop signs. And when they do stop, they feel like they've lost time. And so they increase speeds between the devices. We also have an increase of crash rates. Those are documented again. Stop compliance is poor because again, their perception is, why am I stopping? There's no side traffic. So then they begin to run those devices. And then the third part of this is those crash rates then go up because they're not adhering to those devices. And lastly, it's the effectiveness of what you didn't want to do. What we actually find is it's a decrease in safety because then the pedestrian safety is decreased because at these unwarranted multi-stops, especially with small children, because again, they're not stopping at these devices. The pedestrian thinks they're going to stop. And the next thing we know, we're creating something that we definitely did not want to accomplish here. I then have included some specific code references in the bottom for as you can read through on your own. But again, on the very last 3 pages of the document, you can see that this gentleman has compiled research of over 90 or 70 technical papers covering all about this. And the title is Multi-Way Stops. The research shows the MUTCD is correct. Again, in that manual, it specifically states that we do not want to use stop signs for speed control. And I hope that my information is helpful to you. Again, I want to emphasize the fact that we are committed to this corridor and looking at this. I mean, you're just going to have to give us time to get this compiled data and get a report out on what our recommendations are. Thank you.
You beat me to it. Go ahead.
Through you, Director, do you have a rough idea of when the public and when the council could expect to report? Just not a date, but a month?
Chairman Cook, through you, I would say about roughly a month, Mr. Seagrave.
Oh, fabulous. Thank you.
Okay. I would agree. And Mr. Cobb, thank you for restating the focus. Appreciate your comments on the proposed resolution, but again, much like these folks, as a resident of that area, I think that's really just the message that I as a resident want is just that, I could care less if it was these, the resolution with these stop signs, just as long as you're moving forward and doing something. So I appreciate you stating the focus of that, that you are trying to do something. So for whatever it's worth, thank you for working on this.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
we do have Councilman Laybourne with his hand raised too.
All right, before I go to public comment, go ahead, Mr. Laybourne, then I'm going to turn it over to public comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I look forward to reviewing this information that was handed out at the meeting today. I do have a question for Mr. Cobb, and I guess I'll have comments as we get this on the floor. But Mr. Cobb, what is the process for a community to communicate and appeal to changes in the manual of uniform traffic control devices that we find to be probably not all that effective in our community? Is there some sort of a process? And I do understand your statement about state statute and that universal aspect of traffic planning, but is there some sort of an appeal process that can be made to note that if there is a problem that probably needs attention? And the reason I ask this, Mr. Cobb and members of the committee, is because I know that throughout the country there is a movement and an interest in better pedestrian, bicycle, crosswalk, enforcement and placement that, probably we should be educating ourselves on and involving ourselves in, because as, was pointed out and was pointed out many times in my experience, there are changes that are necessary, and I would hope that the city of Cheyenne takes advantage of any opportunity to comment on these standards. Do we have an opportunity to appeal or comment on these standards, Mr. Cobb?
Chairman Cook,
If
through
you'd
you
like
to Councilman Laybourne. Yes, there is a process. So annually, they go through edits and revisions to this manual. And there is a public comment period that on the Federal Highway Administration page for you to be able to interact with that group. And I'd also like to add that in addition to this, and by state statute, the Transportation Research Board, which is basically, it's administered through the Federal Highway Administrator, which also is in state statute. They come up with guidelines that enhance or make things better prior to the MUTCD. So right now, for instance, this exact study is going on right now with them on crosswalks and crosswalk warrants. So again, they hire a professional, and professionals throughout the country make comments on this. And then also the public is allowed to make comments. So I would encourage everyone to go to the Transportation Research Board, make their comments at that level, and also through the MUTCD when they do their updates and amendments. Those things don't come very easily in the MUTCD, but the TRB does move a lot faster. And again, they're updating crosswalk warrants right as we speak.
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead, Mr. Laybourne.
So you mentioned individuals being able to comment and professionals in the field. Is there a provision here for a municipality to make a comment as a municipality, not Pete Laybourne as a city councilman?
Mr. Cook, through you to Councilman Laybourne. I'm not sure, sir, but I'm sure that would be fine.
Thank you.
Thank you. Public comment, again, related to the proposed resolution.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, Michael White, I'd like to make a few comments. I respectfully remember the last council meeting that many members of the council were really in agreement to do what was called a temporary installation of additional traffic control devices. Respectfully so, I know Mr. Seagrave was really working hard on this, but let's take a couple other issues. Cheyenne Frontier Days as a temporary stoplight up there on Hines Boulevard every year. Now, my facts remember originally Mr. Ken Lewis, which was the city engineer, approved that without my knowledge, any flack or any state statute requirements. Then it went back to not doing it. And this year again, it was up there. So through any legal device here or legal comments, how did we get that one put up there? And respectfully so, there's some people here in the back room that have been to this meeting and then also are at council. They are actually residents of this area. And I respectfully say, I know the council wants to do this, but as Mr. Seagrave said, government moves very slowly. So if anybody could answer that question on 8th Avenue and Hines, how that temporary stoplight got to be put there. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Carol Davenroy, and I live at 1101 Spirit Lane in Cheyenne. And the reason I'm here today is because I saw the interview of Mr. Laybourne on the local news, and they specifically said that they were going to encourage public input on speeding, but I guess that won't be happening today. So I apologize to my neighbors who I encouraged to come to this meeting. And I was also at the September 25th council meeting, where they did discuss the fact that Resolution 18 was it was going to be shut down. But I did ask at that meeting if it was because of the temporary designation. And also they specifically cited stop signs. So is there not some other permanent, or if you can't do permanent yet, temporary fix that's not a stop sign? Because that seemed to be the issue. They talked about lawsuits in 85 and 91 because a temporary stop sign was put up. And when we talk about warrants, I did ask this question of Mr. Cobb. But I won't ask it today because I don't ask questions here. But I would like to know more, what are 2 locations in the city that meet the warrant of 100 pedestrians in 1 hour of observed time? Give me 2. Probably there's one by during Frontier Days probably, but where else in the city does it meet that? And shouldn't we rip those out if a crosswalk can be unsafe because the pedestrians get a false sense of security or of safety? Let's rip them out then. We're not necessarily on Gardenia asking for stop signs. I know that there are some people that would like some, but I would, when I first communicated with the mayor and the city council, I said, I'm not gonna, throw out things because it's not up to me to decide what to do. That was in April. How about speed tables, speed bumps, crosswalks with a pedestrian flashing sign? Those aren't stop signs. But there's always reasons why, we can't do that because cars get used to seeing them and it doesn't do any good. Or the other one they gave me was cars use that as a thoroughfare and they're not used to going down that street, so they don't see them. Well, so that's two-sided. So I guess what I'm here today is to ask you to consider, well, what you're already doing, but it doesn't have to be stop signs. I've seen speed tables work really well. So thank you for your time.
I'm going to respond to that, your comments if I can. What I heard from Mr. Cobb, no, and I agree, and I'm glad you were still here to make your comments. And we very much appreciate that. What I'm hearing is that there is nothing off the table. I mean, you are evaluating the entire situation, I believe, Mr. Cobb, and who knows what the recommendations are going to be, but that is part of your evaluation of the situation is what I'm hearing.
Sure,
Just
but
what your options are.
that is correct. We are looking at
Okay.
everything on the table, so to speak.
All right.
And trying to find the best path moving forward. Again, we are going to look at the data. That means the actual speed data, not perceived data, actual data that the police department has collected and ourselves. So I can let you know that earlier, I haven't said this in public, our interns did go out and collect speed data. And we at that time found the 85 percentile speed to be 34 miles an hour on the westbound movement, 36 miles an hour on the eastbound movement. I haven't looked at the data yet from the police department, but again, we're going to take all of that data together and come up with recommendations moving forward. And then the last thing I'd like to say, if I'm still can, I'd like to address Mr. White's comment. And so he asked about 8th Avenue. So per city code, under 10.2.010, authorized authority to install. And what it is, it says the city traffic engineer, under the direction and supervision of the city engineer, shall place and maintain official traffic control devices when as required under the traffic ordinances of the city to make effective the provisions of such ordinances, and may place and maintain such additional official traffic control devices as he or she may deem necessary to regulate, warn, or guide traffic under the traffic ordinances of the state vehicle code. So in the case of 8th Avenue, we and myself authorized the installation of the temporary signal at 8th in which he's referring to.
Okay. Thank you. You're always encouraged to make public comments. I don't want you to feel like you couldn't ask your questions or state your comments. I just want to make sure you know that. Further public comment here in the room or online. Come on up, please. Please activate the microphone and identify yourself, please.
Bonnie Cruz.
And Cheryl Steele.
We both live on Spirit Lane. First of all, I want to thank the chief of police for having patrol cars out on Gardenia this last week. My concern was that they were there what I consider an off time when You're trying to get out of Spirit Lane, turn left to go on Gardenia between 4 and 6 PM. It's very, very difficult because we have the dance studio, we're gonna have the gymnastics, we've got the daycare. So in the study, I would like to see a timeline, not just for a couple hours, but perhaps for a couple weeks. And especially on vacations. My mind just went blank. Oh, also, when I lived in Western Hills, there was a temporary stoplight on the corner of Bishop Boulevard and Central, which as a working person at that time was great because of all the traffic coming onto the base and into the Army Guard there. It was great. So please give a consideration of a complete study, not just what's happening in California and Nebraska, but we need to take action of what's happening in our city. Thank you.
So his study is going to, my understanding, I haven't heard anybody say that other states or jurisdictions are being studied. I mean, my understanding of the work that staff is doing is studying that particular situation.
Thank you.
So I haven't heard, I'm not sure
Yeah.
where the reference is to
Right.
other places or the municipalities, but my understanding is that your particular area that you're asking about is the only area being studied. being evaluated.
Also in our area, the United States is known for its high rate of obesity. And with people out walking, riding their bikes, this is so good for the health of the community and the future children, our most valuable natural assets. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Steele, did you have anything you wanted to add? I know you've spoken, but go ahead.
I just wanted to reemphasize everything that you're doing, anything.
Right.
We're still begging for you to do something as soon as you possibly can. Just to get people used to it before winter sets in. And then also that it'll be well-known way before Frontier Days next year and that kind of thing. Before it gets crazy in the summer, so.
Well, I believe we heard Mr. Cobb is hoping to have his study done within a month from now. So hopefully that is the case, but they'll be diligent. They'll do what they need to do. And then obviously that will be presented to us. There'll obviously be opportunities for public comment. Before, and recommendations will be made and we'll have to take the action on that to bring those things into existence. But I think you're being heard loud and clear. So
Thank you. That's all we can ask. Thanks.
further public comment. Do we have any hands raised online? No? The chair would entertain a motion. Go ahead. I just was gonna say, I'm comfortable that even without this resolution, I know Mr. Cobb is working on this. I'm comfortable that we are moving forward.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second,
Mr. Chair, I think the purpose of Mr. Chair, I think the purpose of the resolution to bring recognition of the problem and to help find solutions, it's achieved what we really wanted it to do. I'm looking at the data that Mr. Cobb has provided, stop signs probably weren't the best recommendation for the resolution. Maybe I should have made it more broad and had any traffic control. So I think if we have some resolution within the next month, then this has achieved what I really wanted it to do. And therefore, I'm going to encourage everybody to vote against it. Thank you.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further questions or comments from the committee? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
Okay, my vote won't do a darn bit of difference. There will be no recommendation on the resolution itself, for next Monday's city council meeting. But like I said, for the public's benefit, I know Mr. Cobb's got something coming for us, so hopefully we'll hear something about it sooner rather than later, and we'll keep moving forward on that. Last item, please, number 19.
Number 19, resolution requiring the study and submittal of a report to the governing body regarding vehicles violating posted speed limits on the city's roadways and vehicles disregarding traffic signals and running red lights.
Do we have a staff report on this one? Okay.
I probably ought to do this one as well.
Okay.
In addition to the Gardenia situation, one of the top concerns I hear from folks around the community is red lights violations, speeding violations. I believe it's more on the larger streets, the Yellowstones, Delrange, Pershing, College, etc. And so in preparing this resolution, I am aware that other communities use automation to help control the traffic. We have never done this. And quite honestly, I don't know what's available out there. I don't know if there are one type of a system, two, whatever it is out there. So what I'm really trying to do here is to get staff to look at what's available, provide a recommendation as to a particular system that they believe would assist. And at that time, if the governing body accepts the report, then we could proceed to RFPs and that type of a thing. So this does not get us into the automated traffic control, but it gives us information on what is available and what system our staff thinks would be the best available for our community. I am familiar with a system in Fort Collins only because one of my children received a driving award. And this particular system clocks your speed, sets the date, the time, takes a picture of the person driving, a picture of the front end of the car in this situation with the license plate, and it automatically mails out the citation. So it's pretty developed. I don't think it would require something similar to this. I don't believe would require a lot of additional staff time in controlling the traffic, but that's all I know about it. I don't even know the name of the system, what it costs, where it's recommended to be installed. So it's those types of things that I'm hoping this resolution will bring forth and educate us on what potentially could be help with our overall traffic control. Initially, I was thinking, well, maybe we need more patrol officers, and honestly, again, without knowing the cost of the technology, but I know how hard it is for our departments to even find people and the process and the cost to develop police officers. I'm hoping that technology will help the existing staff enforce the rules that you and I and other electeds have created over the years that I don't believe are being enforced right now. So that's the genesis of this, and I'm certainly open to any recommendations or modifications of the resolution if someone would like to propose those. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have a staff report on this item? Is he nothing? I can't see you all the way down the corner, so I don't know. Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. Well, we'll just go ahead and go to public comment again. We're on number 19. also traffic related. Folks, step right up.
Good afternoon. I'm a homeowner, Doug Treptow at 601 Harmony Lane. And that's on the corner of Bishop and Harmony. And I agree with Councilman Seagrave that traffic is extremely bad and speeding is extremely bad citywide. And I'd like to see something done, and I have pursued it through the police department and told that they're doing everything that they possibly can to stop the speeding on Bishop Avenue. But from what I see, I spend a lot of time out in my garage and I see very little response from our police department. And just like this, know that our frontage roads need as much concern as our main streets and thoroughfares in town. Because I think that's even worse, because people see that it's right alongside the freeway and they think it can be the freeway. So that is my concern. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate you being here for your comments. Further public comment? Please do. Absolutely.
Carol Davenroy, Spirit Lane. Just one quick comment. I have
No, you're
lived
good.
where they have camera traffic control and no friends that live in another place that they do. And the only thing, and I don't know if it's legal, if you can do it, if you can attach, if you're looking at this, attach the ticket to the car. Because the people who fight, and lots of them fight it, some of the cities have had to take them down because people fight it. If you attach it to the car, they can't say, well, that's not me. Because the pictures are good, but they're not 100%, and that's not me. Sometimes they win, but anyway, if you can attach it to the car, you've got the license plate in the car. I think that might be better.
Thank you. Further public comment, and again, I can't see the far back corner, but further public comment here in the room. Another opportunity for raised hands. Okay. The chair would entertain a motion.
Move to adopt.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Moved by Mr. Seagrave, seconded by Mr. Laybourne. Comments, questions, concerns from the committee?
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Mr. Laybourne.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to the people that have come in today to help us understand the problems that we have. I would like to point out that the recent discussion about Gardenia is one area. Throughout Ward 1 that I represent, there are numerous areas that have similar problems. I would ask the council members to remember the little boy that was hit on Central Avenue going to school and the trouble we're having getting good access across the Central and Warren. I'm downtown a lot, and on Central and Warren, particularly on Warren heading up towards Pershing, I don't see one car going 20 miles an hour. When I'm on Del Range and I'm at the speed limit, being passed and sort of noticed from people that are going faster that they believe we should all go faster. So I speak in favor of this resolution, and particularly want to point out that we are really at a good point in our city where we can make some more contemporary and effective use of our planning processes. We now have a new traffic engineer on staff that's fully qualified. I think that's a real plus. I know there's a lot to do, but certainly having that expertise is a good thing. And the new director of the Metropolitan Planning Office, I think that we can look through some of those past plans and see what we need to do. But ultimately, as I mentioned earlier, I think as a community, we need to make a statement that speeding, crosswalks, and particularly, as was noted by a recent comment here, on some of those residential streets, speed tables can be very effective. It's about making change. It changes that we need to make to really incorporate and make safe all the users of the street, and really recognize that the excessive speed, and I would also note the excessive noise that is being created at this time, really needs a full approach. I think you have not only regulation and enforcement, you have public communication. And I believe that when we're giving up what makes Cheyenne a great place to live, which is its relatively quiet nature, when we're giving that up for a little extra speed, yeah, I think that's something that needs quite a bit of attention. And I think this resolution is a step in that correct direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Laybourne. Appreciate the comments. Further questions or comments from the committee?
Mr. Chair, real briefly, in the resolution, the first paragraph indicates that the population of the city of Cheyenne in the 2020 census was 65,132. But I would also point out that we have a fairly large nearby county population. So really our roadways are handling up to 100,000 people instead of just 65,000. So I believe that's important. I'd also point to the first 8th whereas, where under Wyoming statute 15-1-103, cities and towns have the authority to, quote, take all necessary action to plan, construct, or otherwise improve, modify, repair, maintain, and regulate the use of streets. And then the final whereas on the first page, in accordance with the authority vested by state statute and under the city code, the Cheyenne Police Department is responsible for enforcing the traffic laws. So what this resolution, I believe, is trying to do is to give them the tools necessary to enforce those laws. I don't think it's a final decision yet, but I've been working with Assistant City Attorney Brody, and he believes that the city has the authority to use automated traffic controls. It's not something that we have to go change state statute for. So if we find a system that does work for us, whether it be the, I believe it's how we construct the ordinance, whether it's the person or the car, but I like the idea of citing the owner of the vehicle. If we find a system that would work, I believe we are authorized by state statute to use that technology. So I would encourage us to move forward, and hopefully a few months from now, we'll have the ability to make a recommendation to the full governing body. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Last chance, Dr. Riddy, your colleagues have spoken. I just give you the opportunity if you have some comments. Okay, we have a motion and a second on the table. We've had public comment. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? The recommendation for this item will be for approval, adoption at next Monday City Council meeting. With that, thank you all for your patience with this. Thank you all for being here. This meeting is adjourned.